This is a call for Disruptors show flight.
During my childhood days, we used to rely on rations. My mom used to tell me, go and stand in the queue immediately. Queues is something which I think every Indian is used to.
You've come from this background where you've had to stand in queue for rations. How do you become the CEO of Digi Yatra?
Why should there be so much of friction in availing a service? And from that perspective, I think this whole thought process of Digi Yatra began. We were asked, to write a memorable journey experience for the passenger. And I wrote this very simple story saying that, passenger just walks through all the touch points and nobody stops him or her for anything.
The initial teething troubles, talk a bit about that, including the vendor that you had for the back end of this entire process. There were questions on transparency. There were a lot of questions on safety. Why should I give my biometrics to a government agency?
We ran the startup challenge. We had a 6 startup shortlist. 2 of them were offered to build. One of them went ahead and built this ecosystem. And yes, we had a parting of ways.
Welcome to this very special episode of The Disruptors. And today we're talking to a man and a product that has become a huge part of all of our lives, especially if you're an air traveler. Now, when Digi Yatra was first launched as a concept, there were more questions than answers. People wondered whether their data would be safe. People wondered why the government wanted face biometrics, what it would mean. But over the years, it's become very clear that if you're not on Digi Yatra, you must be prepared to spend a lot of additional time going in and out of large airports. As this product and its use spreads over Indian air travelers, we have the pleasure to speak with the CEO of Digi Yatra, Mr. Suresh Khadakbhavi is with us today in our studios. Thank you so much, Mr. Suresh, for joining in.
Thank you, Tamanna, for having me.
Yeah. Let's start with the origin story of Digi Yatra and your own journey as well. You've not always been in the airline business. You're more in the telecom tech space, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I started my life journey or professional life journey as a maintenance engineer. I used to repair fax machines, install trunk mobile radio systems. So primarily in the telecom industry, and then from there I moved on into various different roles, simulating equipment for networks, and then eventually I moved on to airports. So that's been my professional journey. But yes, I think when you start to look at your life, right? During my childhood days, we used to have these. Came from a very humble sort of family, right? And we used to rely on rations. And the rations used to be like, once in a fortnight or once in a month, we used to get those rations, which is rice and wheat and kerosene, for example, right? And we were in Mumbai suburbs. So these stocks used to be like, used to come once in or twice in a month. Whenever the stock would come, we would get the message and then we would run. And my mom used to tell me, go and stand in the queue immediately. So we used to run and stand in a queue. So now my point is, queues is something which I think every Indian is used to, right? And This is from my childhood days I've been seeing. And as I grew up, so application to my college, right? Again, long queue. To even collect the application form, there is a long queue. Electricity bills, we used to stand in queues to pay electricity bills. And then, of course, professionally, when I entered the airport aviation industry, again, it's the same thing, right? And this is what was something which I felt, should not be, right? I mean, why should there be so much of friction in availing a service? And from that perspective, I think this whole thought process of Digi Yatra began.
I'm just going to go back. What a fascinating idea. And think about it, it's true. Indians as a people are attuned to stand in queues from birth to death, I would say. You have to stand in a queue. Someone has to stand in a queue for your birth certificate. Someone has to stand in a queue for your death certificate, for your school leaving, for any forms that you have to fill.
Yes.
Wow. And you've come from this background where, you've had to stand in queue for rations. How do you become the CEO of Digi Yatra?
No, I think it's been a long journey, right? Professionally also, it's been a long journey, and I've not done any shortcuts. It's like always, it's a gradual sort of a linear growth that has happened. This was some time back when I was in Bangalore International Airport. We were thinking of a new terminal. And for this new terminal, we had this workshop, a 3-day workshop, where we were asked, right, to write a memorable journey experience for the passenger at the new terminal. And everything was like conceptual in nature. And I wrote this very simple story saying that, passenger just walks through all the touch points, and nobody stops him or her for anything, and just boards the flight, right? And this was a concept which was based on the face as the single token. We used to call it at that time as my face is my boarding pass. And of course, easier to say than actually execute, right? Because the whole aviation industry has got disparate sort of elements, disparate sort of validations to be done, identity validation, travel document validation, many other validations which happen, right? And all these are from different ecosystems. So how do you get everything stitched together and then still make it happen and give a memorable sort of an experience? So this was a difficult task. We started off working on this with biometric vendors.
No, one second. Let's not jump that queue. So you submit this concept, but there is someone at the other end who has to look at this and say that, okay, this is something that we can actually do. This is not a flight of fancy.
Yeah.
Who's that?
Yeah. So the concept anyway, I was from the IT department, right? And this concept was put up, and people were asked to vote for this also, right? We were given some limited votes, all the participants from the workshop, and we got some 6 votes, 2 of them mine and my colleague, right? So we didn't get enough number of votes also. But the whole point is that, we were all like, and at that time I would say not just Bangalore, right? All the other airports also. Indian aviation is like growing at a phenomenal pace. And everybody was looking at solutions to ease this whole process, the friction in the process, and make the airports more efficient. And I think from that perspective, I started to work on, okay, how do we make this happen, right? And since I was in IT, passenger processing was part of my sort of delivery also at that point of time. So we started to think of stitching this story together.
No, so coming back to the point, how does this become a government initiative? Because right now, Digi Yatra, I think 25% is owned by Airport Authorities of India. And then there are 5 or 6 other airports who also have shares.
Yes.
And it's a private company. This, a lot of people might not know, but Digi Yatra is a private company. But the government has allowed it to happen or facilitated it. So how was that connection made?
So first, when we conceptualized, the next step was to do a pilot, because the proof of pudding is something which is important, right? People need to actually experience it, and then I think they can make up their mind. So what we did was we said, okay, conceptually it looks good, but let's actually attempt doing it with passengers. And we did a proof of concept in 2017, and that time it was with Jet Airways. We used to do 1 flight every day. And I used to be with the passengers right from the airport entry to the boarding gate. And I used to take their feedback, candid feedback with their consent, right? Asking them, what do you feel about this process? And there were a few passengers who said, why only 1 lane? Why only for 1 flight? Why not do it for all the lanes, and why not all airlines, and why not all airports? And that's when we started to get the ministry also involved. And at that point of time, ministry also was looking at something which can ease the passenger journey. And when we brought them to witness this whole process, they said that this has to become like the Suomoto standard for passenger processing across India. And then we got everyone together, and this was an initiative which was headed by the Secretary of Ministry of Civil Aviation. And then under the Secretary was the steering committee, which was the CEOs of various public-private partnership airports and the chairman of Airports Authority of India. And then under them were people like me, who were subject matter experts, we called ourselves as the technical working committee. And we started to then do brainstorming workshops, ironing out the processes, various stakeholders, right? The security, CISF, Bureau of Civil Aviation and Security, the IB, even from a data security perspective. All these stakeholders had to be convinced that, what we are doing is something which is going to take care of all your requirements as well, while still providing a superlative passenger experience. So then I think it took almost a year plus for us to bring all the minds together and get something which is.
But frankly, in the time it takes for government typically to decide something and execute something, a year is not that much time at all.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So this is what happens when a tech-backed idea meets policy support. And that's when you see something like Digi Yatra you're rolling out, because you need to have the buy-in from the CRPF, you need to have buy-in from the airline, the airport, everyone, right?
So I think where we won the game was we had everything. We had a good point for all stakeholders, meaning that a value for all stakeholders. So if you look at airlines were at that point of time, right, everything is happening manual. So they would not know how many passengers entered for a particular flight, whether passengers have actually crossed security check or not. They may be at final call and they may be looking for a few passengers, right? They would get this awareness. Security, for example, if CISF, if you are to look at the actual role of the CISF, looking at your documents, right, it's a very complicated sort of a thing. So we have taken away all that burden, and we have said that all these things let it be done in a digital manner. So the identity validation happens digitally, with this face-to-face match. The travel document validation happens with the airline departure control system. Everything is digital, so the pain is taken away, and then also the human error, right? And you look at today's technology, right? I mean, you can forge an identity card, you can forge a boarding pass or a travel document, and no human eye can detect, right? All that is now out. You can't forge this because you can't, the validation of your identity happens directly with your Aadhaar. So you can't cheat that. Your travel document, when you are entering the airport, your boarding pass gets validated with the airline departure control system. So again, that you can't beat or cheat. So I think from that perspective, we have taken away pain from each stakeholder, and therefore everyone is like, sold on this, and we have got people who are who swear by Digi Yatra, I would say.
But it wasn't the case right in the beginning, wasn't it? There were a lot of questions on safety. Why should I give my biometrics to a government agency? Because this was being rolled out, and the communication at the front end was from the ministry, right?
That's true.
So why should I give my details? What will my face ID be used for after this? And you had for some time that pain to convince people to adopt this.
Yeah, I think it was more about people understanding how the ecosystem is built. And we are not like the typical central identity management platform, right? There is no central identity management platform at all in Digi Yatra. Everything is decentralized. And the whole concept is called as self-sovereign identity, which means that you, as a holder of the data, have got complete power over where you shared the data, when you shared the data, what is the data that you shared, everything, right? It's in your control. And the other thing is it's with consent driven first, meaning that we take consent. We also tell you the purpose for what we are taking these data points. And then once that purpose is achieved, which is you crossing through the airport, then this whole data gets purged. And how do we ensure it is purged? We do certain empaneled agencies who do audit of the various airport verifiers. So from that perspective, you are reassured that none of your data is being misused. And then, yes, I do agree that, there were people who had doubts about, I mean, this is perhaps another surveillance sort of a
Correct.
thing.
And in our country right now, everything turns political.
Yeah.
So I think even the initial phases of Digi Yatra and the conversation was very political. That why is our face being captured and what will be done with it?
Correct. So, and I'll tell you examples, right? And I saw on Instagram, there is this one video where, this person is like, vocally, vociferously sort of, saying that, say no to Digi Yatra. And he is speaking. His Instagram handle has got his name, etc., etc. People know him. and he's giving a live sort of a video shoot at the airport, saying that say no to Digi Yatras, you have a choice, etc., etc. It's not that we are forcing passengers to enroll. It is a choice that you have, and the whole ecosystem is first of its kind. And I'm actually very glad to say this, that we are the torchbearers, global torchbearers of self-sovereign identity implementation, right? And this is not done at this scale, this volume, anywhere else in the world. We've got so many other countries, continents trying to get into this sort of a process. It's a privacy by design ecosystem. And what we have tried to do is this conception or the misconception, right? We need to change. And from that perspective, we have started doing various campaigns on social media.
No, but let me come back to the point about that you don't store the data. Yes, all of the new data is erased, which would be your PNR number, what flight you're going to. But your face and the image of your face is in the database. That's how you use it every time.
So it's not in the database. It is in your phone, right? Meaning that, that face and your name, all the other data points are in your phone as a verifiable credential. It's in your phone in a secure wallet.
Okay, so it's not on a cloud where someone else can access it.
No. Yeah. So we process the data. Once we create the credential, what we do is we put a signature on the credential. Now this signature is used to identify that, okay, this credential has been issued by Digi Yatra Foundation. So the airport verifier knows, okay, fine, this is a known issuer. Second is, there is also a check on the credential, which is that if any tampering is done to this verifiable credential, we have a proof value, which gets validated. So I issued a credential with this proof value, and now whatever I've got from the user is not that same credential. It's tampered. So it's a tamper-evident ecosystem also. So we say it is a privacy-preserving ecosystem. It's also a tamper-evident ecosystem. And it's completely secure, end-to-end secure, encrypted.
The initial teething troubles, talk a bit about that, including the vendor that you had for the back end of this entire process. There were questions on transparency. You acted quickly on it. Tell us about that part of the journey.
So this was some time back when we decided that, okay, we need to build the Digi Yatra ecosystem. So before the pandemic, we had said it will be a central identity management platform. And we went ahead, rolled out an RFP, selected a partner. And once we were able to sort of place the order, pandemic hit us, right? And travel came to a standstill. And then we had to relook. We had to relook at multiple aspects, which is from the financial outgo, all those aspects we had to look at. And while we were doing that, I was also part of the IATA's One ID advisory group. And in that One ID advisory group, we were talking of self-sovereign identity and decentralized ecosystems being rolled out. So what we did was we said that, okay, while IATA keeps on setting the standards, here is something which is perhaps possible for us to deploy. And even self-sovereign identity at that time was in early nascent stage. And there were no big players who would do it. So we said, okay, let us run a startup challenge. And we ran an Indian startup challenge with the help of Atal Innovation Mission and Niti Aayog. And we ran the startup challenge. We had a 6 startup shortlist. 2 of them were offered to build. 1 of them went ahead and built this ecosystem. And yes, we had a parting of ways. And now we are managing it completely by ourselves.
Tell us about the parting of ways. That was the important part. जो आपने बस 3 word में बोल दिया. वो हिस्सा बताइए.
So I think for us, I think it's already something which is there in the news media. I don't want to speak much about it, but the point is that yes, this was a concept which was provided by us to the startup. In the innovation challenge itself, right? We had put up this whole concept of self-sovereign identity, W3C standards, verifiable credentials using decentralized identifiers, etc. The whole concept was put by us, and then yes, one startup built it. There were 5 others who were willing to build it for us, right? But any which ways, I think what we have now done is we have started to manage completely on our own.
Correct. No. So these hiccups are likely to happen right at the start of this kind of a journey. What is coming next is my question, because I think for anyone who's traveling on Digi Yatra, and this is, what people say, that if you don't have checked-in luggage, it's great. If you have a carry-on bag, then, you're in and out very, very quickly, maybe 15 minutes to your gate. But if you have to check in your baggage, then you're back in that same queue that we were talking about. What is the solution there?
So when we defined this whole journey, right, so it was airport entry, check-in, which is your baggage drop, and then security check, and then boarding gate, and also lounge access, for example, right? Those were all the logical progression steps. And the other was also automated border control, right? So the check-in part of your baggage, right? I think some airports have begun to do the initial trials, and where you can actually stand in front of a kiosk, print a bag tag, tag your bag, go to the self-service bag drop, and drop your bag.
It'll all be on the same
Everything
Digi Yatra
on the
platform.
same face as the single token. But this is a graduated sort of a step that is being taken by airports. Some airports have already begun doing these tests and prototypes. And very soon you will find that, even that touch point is completely
What's the
biometric.
timeline? By when do you think this becomes a reality?
I
at least
cannot,
at your
at this stage, I cannot give you a
major
timeline.
airports?
But yes, I think work has already begun. Few airlines at some airports are already using it.
No, and it'll be the distinction, right? It saves
Yeah.
the airlines also a lot of time and
True.
space to do it.
And the experience. I think for us, what has been the most important aspect is that everything revolves around the customer and the customer experience. We have not thought anything beyond that. For us, it has been the core. What is the customer need and how do we address it? And how do we make it simple?
So what is the progression of this use case? Because you now have this technology, you're using it in airports, and yours is a non-profit organization. It's not a government organization, but you're providing this service as a quasi-public service with the government on board on everything you're doing. Is there an extension, for example, to hotels, etc.?
I'm glad that you asked this question. Because see, when we have created this credential, it's there in your phone.
Yeah.
Today you can share it only if you have a boarding pass. It is an automated trigger, right? As soon as you upload the boarding pass, the credential gets added and shared. But why not just allow the credential to be used independently? And again, it could be a much more privacy-preserving way of getting your identity validated at various places. Like it could be a hotel. So you land at a particular destination, check into a hotel. And I know you travel a lot, surely. And when you are waiting for getting checked in, right? You are waiting for that other person, other guest to get processed, etc. It takes like 10 minutes, and that 10 minutes is a long time. You wouldn't want to wait that long. How would it be if you entered the hotel with your face? And maybe the hotel room itself, right? You could enter with your face. Or you could stand in front of a kiosk and your card gets issued. And then you
What
walk
are the
in.
downsides, the risks? Honestly.
There are no downsides.
No,
Tell me.
Be objective about it.
100%
because this is
objective.
sounding like a very dystopian future.
It's not. It's happening today.
It can extend. I'm just thinking off the top of my. It can extend to advertisers. If I'm walking through a mall now, my face is being scanned, and then my phone's getting
No, so it
bombarded.
is you who start everything. So remember this. With Digi Yatra, it's you as the user who initiates every conversation. So you want to share the boarding pass to the airport. So you share the credential. You want to enter the hotel. So you share the credentials, right? It is you who initiate everything. It's not like some camera at some place captures your face and then they validate it with what? They need you to accept that validation or you to initiate the validation. So it's always you. That's the reason why it's called a self-sovereign identity. It is basically you who drive everything. It is not somebody who can just capture. That is surveillance. So if you are walking on the road and somebody captures your face and validates you with something, that is obviously surveillance, right? But
So
we don't do that.
So the same platform you're saying as of this moment cannot be used for surveillance.
Absolutely not, because where is the credential? For surveillance, you need a central repository.
Right.
We don't have any central repository.
Okay. What does this whole system look like when you add an AI filter to it? Because that's the reality. Is
So
that
the
something
AI
you want to adopt? Is that something that you're worried could turn into, an opening for misuse?
So AI per se, if you were to look at it, the one thing that we use is the face match, right? Beyond that, there is nothing that we use. But you bring up a very interesting topic of AI, right? And you look at any industry for that matter, right? airport complex industry, right, where so many different service providers coming together to provide that one passenger a memorable journey, and different entities, right? How do they get common situational awareness? AI can help. How do you make your airside more efficient? Like, for example, a flight coming in, landing, and then which is the stand that needs to be allocated to it, which is the nearest, most efficient sort of a thing, which one will take the least taxi time. All these aspects, right, AI can help certainly enhance the efficiency of the airport operations. And this is not just airside, it's the terminal, it's the land side, right, the vehicles moving in the land side. All that flow can actually become much more efficient using AI. But for us, I think AI is more on just the face match. Beyond that, there is nothing much because we don't have a use case at all.
Yeah, no use case, at least today. Thank you so much, Suresh, for coming in and speaking to us. This has been a fascinating journey, and I feel that you're just getting started with what Digi Yatra can do. What is
Absolutely.
the target for the adoption of Digi Yatra? How many passengers on it in terms of a percentage, and where do you expect that to go?
So today we crossed 15 million just a few days back.
Okay.
15 million user base. We have enabled more than 60 million smiles. More than 2.5 years now. I think for us the future is more from international journey perspective. And again, in the international journey also, look at the Trusted Traveler program of any country. That program works only for that particular airport or that particular country, right? Departing from that, arriving into that country. But if you look at an ecosystem like Digi Yatra, you can actually share your credentials to the destination. And then when you reach the destination after a 10-hour long flight, you actually can zip through the whole process seamlessly. Right?
That's the goal.
So that's something which we are aiming to.
Yeah.
And then of course that's a sensitive border crossing, and therefore we'll have to deal with multiple ministries, and we have just begun those initial discussions.
Well, the future is bright and sky high. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Thank you, Tamanna. It's been my pleasure. Thank you.